Rozenberg. Today, I'm going to take you on a little field trip, and I'm going to show you one of my rental properties that I purchased after Hurricane Harvey. The property I purchased had flooded all the way up to the second floor, and we bought it after it had already been ripped down to the studs. And I'm going to give you a deep dive into what I was thinking, why I bought it, and what the numbers were, and why it became a very, very successful rental for me. So make sure you pay attention, bring a pen and paper, take a lot of notes. This is going to be a good one.
It's been rented ever since. So, I mean, this is the perfect scenario, perfect deal. The deal with this thing is this actually was flooded in the hurricane. So when I bought it, it was stripped down to the studs. And so what was pretty cool is we kind of got it halfway through the make ready, and we basically got it, the numbers were really good. Bought it for 92. It had pre-flood, it had been worth 165. About 23 to 25 we had to put into it. So we're into it for maybe 100 and, let's say 115, 120,000. And we get it rented for like $1,600 a month. And it's been the same tenant since the hurricane. Nothing was there, it was all 2x4s because it had flooded all the way up to almost the second floor. So we had to figure out, what we were gonna do, and then we were deciding if we should knock out walls or not. We ended up deciding to keep this. The only thing that was savable, I believe, was the tile. And in there, that was carpet, and the fireplace was here, but it was not painted. And we were debating, it had been old and worn, so we were debating if we should keep it or get rid of it. Obviously we kept it, we just kind of painted it. And so, we had to make sure, obviously with the flood, we had to make sure that there wasn't mold growing, so we had to bleach everything. We had to make sure that all the electrical was good. So we had, when a house floods like this, you really got to make sure, because it didn't just flood. I'll show you upstairs. There was holes in the roof. So then it came in through the ceiling as well. So it had some damage. And so the guy that I used, very solid guy, he was the one who basically, walked this and gave us the bid. And I got this from a buddy of mine who's a wholesaler who I bought a couple properties from. And he told me it got 25 grand to fix it up. And he was spot on with it. So, if you get a good guy that they'll point it and get you in the right direction. So this we had tile. This was like carpet. It was just, obviously it had been ripped out, but it was toast. What's kind of cool is we really didn't have to do anything to this house on the make ready. It actually was pretty much ready to go, which is nice. We had tenants in there making money on this thing, and tenants move out, and it's pretty much ready to rent. And we've already got it rented. They just moved out like 2 weeks ago, so not much of a make ready was done. Let's see what's going on upstairs before I jinx myself and say that nothing needs to be done. So the carpet's new. Well, carpet's 2 years old, but obviously the high traffic area of the steps is what makes it that. Yeah. So if you see, we put carpet all upstairs. We put the nice ceiling fans in, because you spend a little bit of money and it's much better. This whole bathroom the ceiling had come in, and the whole bathroom had to be totally redone. We had to redo everything because it was just totally encaved, it's kind of hard to imagine what you're going to do with something like this when you see it, but obviously, you can make it work. We had to put all new countertops and everything in. Here's the other one, and then here's the master. And I think it was in the hallway where the ceiling came in, and it was like a flood of water had just come in, and it was just, it just annihilated everything. And then that went down into the first floor. So there was a lot of problems with this property, but like anything, it can be fixed. Well, this was already here, so that was nice. This we had to put in. This countertop here, we had to put this in, and that was good. But what's cool, I have to say, is I've only seen this house one time when I walked it the first time, when I walked it with to decide to buy it, and I have not seen it since. So to me, that is the true definition of being an investor, where you walk a property once, you buy it, and then you have everyone else do everything, and you're able to leverage them with their skill and expertise. The guy came, he gave me the make-ready bid, who I know. He got me the bid, got it back, we approved it, handed it over to the management company. They put the tenant in. Tenant's been here for almost 3 years. They just moved out. And again, this is the first time I've been back here since Hurricane Harvey, and this thing was on stud. So to me, that is the true definition of a business and the true definition of utilizing team, because that's me doing these things and me coming here is not my skill set. My skill is looking at deals. If it makes sense, then we buy it. And to me, this is a perfect example of how a rental should be, because you don't want to have to be going here back and forth and doing all this. I love when I don't even know where my house is, and I don't even know, I have to use Google Maps to get to them because I don't even recognize them. So to me, that's always a good sign when I cannot recognize my house. Yeah, this is the part, you see right here, there's some lines, some stitch marks. That's the part that was caved in. It was just coming down. And I believe it was in here also. So we had to get some roof work done to it. And I remember, I'll take you outside, but the outside was really, really bad. Just a lot of ugly bushes and stuff that had been overgrown. So the house was kind of an eyesore. So these trees obviously affect a lot of the house in the yard, because it just won't grow because the trees are shading it. But this was, like I said, this had some big ugly bushes. We got those taken care of. The yard, I mean, it's a pretty basic yard, and when you have a rental property, you want it to be pretty basic. You want it to be maintenance free, because if it's not maintenance free and you've got to do all these things to it and the resident doesn't do all these things, now you've spent all that money, and either you've got to keep it going and you have to hire a contract or a yard guy, which is expensive, you got to expense that, or they don't do it, and now you're in a contentious situation. So you kind of have a choice, So my thing is make it functional and make it so that it is a natural landscape, because that's the best way to do this. Now, I mean, we just rented this, so we don't have to do it. If I had seen this, I probably would have suggested putting some flowers, putting some mulch, because mulch and flowers are really the best things to get a property rented, because it colors, right? Your mind sees in colors, and when it sees these colors, it pops. And you have to imagine that when someone is driving up to this house, what are they going to see, right? And that's their first impression, is they're imagining themselves driving up to this house after a hard day's work, and they're trying to imagine them coming to this property and living in this place. And if there's trash everywhere and the yard looks horrible and the house looks ugly, they can't picture themselves doing that. And if you look, this house is very similar to the other houses in this neighborhood. Like, you don't want to overbuild it, right? You don't want this to be something that you have to, that looks too good. And a lot of people make that mistake, that when they're building this, they are making it to what they want. And you've got to do it to the neighborhood, and you've got to do it to what the market bears, and the market bears this. And again, you want it to look very common, because that's what people are looking for that are in this neighborhood. Same thing with countertops and tile and carpet and all those things. Some people do this to what they think they would want it to be, and that's not the way to do it. You've got to do it to what the market bears and what the neighborhood is. If I put double pane glass windows in this thing, if it didn't need it, I'm never going to get the return out of double pane glass windows. So let's say I spend $10,000, $20,000 doing a bunch of stuff to this property that never needed it, and now I've just wasted that money, because I will not get the $10,000 to $20,000 more in rent, over the long term because of it. Now, I may not have to spend capital, I may not have to do maintenance because of it, but I'm not going to have to spend the money. And it would, if this rents for $1,600 a month, I'm not going to get $2,000 a month because I put new windows in. No one's going to pay me for that. And no one's gonna even pay me $1 more, because to them it's not anything that is valuable, except if I was able to tie it to maybe electricity bills. And I said, because of this, your electrical bills will be less, which will save you money. But you've got to explain that to someone, and when you have to explain something like that, it's not always the best way to do it. So you see, the house is pretty good. I mean, pretty clean and functional. And it pretty much looks exterior-wise like it did the day I bought it. Or the one day I was here when I bought it, I should say. But you know, this is a typical Texas property. Pretty good sized backyard. It's very shaded, which obviously if you're renting a property, is always make sure that the fence line is good, because 80% of residents have a pet. So I would always make sure that the fence, you know, if there's a problem or slats or something, like you see over here, there's some slats. It looks like the other neighbor did it, because we have what's called the dirty side, which is the ugly side. And so, you know, obviously, I'm guessing, my guess would be that their tree probably is puncturing through the fence, so that's probably why they replaced it, is my guess. But you always got to make sure that's done. And again, you want a maintenance-free yard, in my opinion. You want something that does not take a lot of maintenance, because you will get pissed and it'll bother you, and you will want some money back, and now it's a contentious situation because you don't think the resident took care of it because of how the flowers you wanted and this and that. So I recommend don't do anything that takes a lot of maintenance. So, I mean, this is the perfect scenario, perfect deal.